I must express gratitude to the priests who have been part of my journey, to my formators, Father Ronald McKench, I'll be forever grateful. Barry O'Toole, these guys are long dead. Kevin Callahan, Father Maguire, wonderful man who taught me how priesthood should be lived. But also young priests who were my peers at the time. It's, we, at the time we're still a very small group of young priests who were coming in, particularly in the Archdiocese, and we would hang out together. Sometimes go out and watch a movie together, and sometimes go out and watch a lyra concert together, and sometimes go to Mereki in Harare as a group and have a meal together. Those were the beautiful days where we used to be family to each other. We used to look out for each other. We used to celebrate each other's feasts, would celebrate each other's success, anniversaries, would attend funerals of bereavement, if there was bereavement in the family or in the other priest's family, would go out and support. They were beautiful days, and I will be forever grateful for those who journeyed with me, those who were with me in the seminary, of course, Father Netepa, Father Lukio, and many others who were senior to me, Father Jaya, Father Regis Chukuni, Father Maximilian Karombo, who also came from Tafara. Many priests of the Archdiocese who I got to know, Father Muchiduku, and many others. The list is very long. I would not be able to finish. But they became my brothers. And it didn't bother anybody that one priest was from the diocese and the other was a religious, who would just hang out together and celebrate our priesthood. And we were part of the presbyterate of the diocese. I remember at the time I was the dean of the outer city deanery. I'm sure many will remember that I was the dean. That's my claim to fame, by the way. I enjoyed being that because it gave me also another opportunity to meet with priests, Jesuits, other religions who were working in the deanery, as far as Rua, with the Claretians, and we enjoyed each other's company. So that relationship gave me something special, that we were one, and that we should work for the Catholic Church, irrespective of the apparent differences. That one was a Franciscan or a Claretian, the other was a Jesuit or a diocesan. We were a family, and we were a happy family. We had challenges. Sometimes we had to call each other out and say, look, you seem to be struggling with this, you seem to be struggling with that. At times we were successful, in other times we weren't so successful. But those were the beautiful days when priesthood really made a strong bond of brotherhood. And that said, we also were supported by the many sisters, religious sisters, who were there in the parishes, working quietly, and yet like salt, making a difference in the places where we worked. So they too made us to be the men or the priests that we were, because they supported our work. They worked alongside us, and many times they looked for for the resources that were required for things to go in our parishes and so on. So again, I'm grateful to the religious, to the sisters, and to the many congregations who I worked with at the time. Well, it's always difficult to talk about tragedies and those difficult days. But perhaps I could take you back to a time just before my ordination to the diaconate, when my mother died. My world fell apart. She was the one person I would have wanted to accompany me, perhaps the way Mary did, and to be part of my story. I was not yet ready to let her go. I wept for many years, for 16 years. I only got overcame it, got to grips with the loss in 2016. It was perhaps 16 years later. I lost my dad in 2002. It was not as hard-hitting as losing a mom. Perhaps they are right when they say that the mom is closer to the son than she is to the daughter. And perhaps she is the son's first girlfriend. My mom was that close. And because she was so loving, so caring, it made the pain of loss be multiplied 1,000 times over. So that's been the pain that I've carried for many years. To say 2016 is to actually say 2 years before my consecration as a bishop, I carried a wound. What then, perhaps beyond that, became a struggle was how to take care of perhaps the last girl in our family, who at the time when my mother died, she was doing Form 2, she was in Form 2, Form 3. Our family was financially stable at the time. My brother was already working, and so too my younger brother and my sisters. They were okay. But unfortunately they had migrated. They were now overseas. And I had to work out how I would take care of her. And so I put her in a boarding school in All Souls Mission, eventually for her A-levels. And so that became a bit of a struggle. And even after her schooling, just to think everybody else had left except me. And it was only right that she should go out of the country to join the others. Having to go through the visa process at the United States Embassy and so on, that took a toll on me. The worries, the anxiety of the time, that didn't, that became a big struggle. Didn't do me any favors. I struggled with it. But eventually she moved over and is now working happily overseas, and also closer to the rest of the family. Those were perhaps my family burdens that I've carried over the years. But a lot were burdens that came with the ministry. You know, perhaps what my mother left me is a big heart. A big heart that loves for free, that carries other people's burdens easily. That sometimes can be intrusive because you want to get into somebody else's world and try and help them order it around and move them on, and because of that, I have been wounded a lot. Wounded by the pain that I found in other people's lives. Wounded by the struggles that many were experiencing along the way. The pain of seeing a friend get sick and his situation just continuing to get worse. And looking at the burdens on his shoulders. I remember a friend of mine who was chairman in Mavuku, Mr. Charamba. His son is now over in South Africa, now happily married. But I remember the day his dad fell sick. Mr. Charamba fell sick. And how this only got worse, and how things, began to pan out from then. And sometimes, as a priest, you are helpless. It's a struggle that I have borne not once, not twice, but many times over. Just being part of the story, I know of a woman in Mavuku who I got to know because I was visiting the sick. And she had two beautiful daughters. And she was HIV positive. And it was clear to us that she was going. And yet she fought so hard to stay alive. And she would always say, I have to stay alive for my kids. And we did all we could to get her the medical help. the antiretrovirals at the time, which were not as good as now. Perhaps it was too late, but despite all those efforts, she died. Perhaps a year on or so. And it was painful just to think of the children and what would happen to them. Their dad had died, their mom was now gone, and they were now going to have to leave Mavuku and to live with the grandparent who herself was quite old at the time. So it was painful, and I still remember these things because they wounded me and hurt me and left me at times helpless and hopeless. And so those are the burdens of ministry that you carry. But God has a way of helping you through the valley of the shadow of death. You learn that this is life. It has a beginning and an end. There were joys along the way of people who recovered from their illness and from their sickness, and but there were also sad stories, like I am telling you, that left us wondering, oh God, why? Why this one? But they have become part of my story, and they've formed me to be the person that I am, to accept that the time comes for all of us, but also to accompany them in those difficult moments, and also to then support the family beyond the day of burial, to be there to help them, to make sure that they're okay. I could tell you 1,000 stories. I make friends very easily. And I have friends from back in the day, from my early years in school, and I still keep in touch with them. I've made friendships along the way. I don't have an enemy. I might have disagreed with people on certain points, but I've never had the courage to have an enemy and to hold a grudge and to want to fight people. I've always wanted, and I always desire to be a friend than to be an enemy. So along the way I've had beautiful friendships with my formators, with my peers, in the difficult years of my life. I've had wonderful support. My mother died when I was just coming out of formation, and the great support I got from Father Ronald McKenzie, from my community, from my brother priest then, was amazing. My fellow priests were always part of my story in the difficult years of my life. And you see, with the Catholic priesthood, one of the great support systems that one gets as you journey along the way to your priesthood and beyond priesthood, the ordination day is the blessing of a spiritual director and a confessor. I've had people like Father Edmund Manera as my spiritual director, Father Ngulube, Johannes Ngulube in Chinoya as my spiritual director. I have also had Father Helbert Muller as my spiritual director. Even the late famous lecturer at Chishawasha, Father Andrew Stekekara, and even I used to go for spiritual direction to the Archbishop when he was still a lecturer at the seminary. These are the people who matter a lot, because there you can be yourself. You can talk to them about your faith journey, but also about you as you, about your struggles, about the things that are challenging you, and maybe here get advice on how to overcome certain things. So that part of a priest's life or a religious life has been essential to my journey, because all of these have been very helpful in helping me get over the stormy sea. Mubasa